My neighbor met me at the gate, then whispered, "They're taking my house." The front gate between our houses was half open when I came home from work. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the warm evening light sliding across the brick houses, not the smell of cut grass drifting from someone's backyard, not the black sedan parked 2 houses down with its engine running too quietly for a normal visitor. The gate was open. Claire Morgan never left it open. She had moved into the old brick house beside mine 3 months earlier. Quiet and careful, the kind of woman who carried groceries in one trip because she did not want to ask anyone for help. Most mornings, I saw her watering the potted herbs on her porch before sunrise. Most evenings, I saw the upstairs office light burning long after the rest of the street had gone dark. We were neighbors, nothing more. A wave from across the driveway. A borrowed ladder once, a returned package twice. But that evening, she stood behind the low wooden fence with both hands wrapped around a folded letter, and the look on her face made me stop before I reached my own porch. "Nathan," she said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. I set my work bag down beside the gate. "Claire?" She glanced toward the black sedan. Then back at me. "They're taking my house." The street noise seemed to fall away. A lawn sprinkler clicked somewhere behind me. A child's bicycle bell rang at the end of the block. The sedan's brake lights glowed once, then went dark again. I opened the gate slowly, careful not to step too close. "Who is taking your house?" She unfolded the letter. Her fingers were steady, but the paper was creased so deeply it looked like she had read it 100 times. "Westbrook Holdings," she said. "They claim my uncle signed a private lien against the property before he died. They say I have 72 hours to vacate unless I pay the full amount." "How much?" She looked down. $240,000. I kept my face still. Claire did not need shock. She had enough of her own. "Did you know about the lien?" "No. My uncle left me this house because he wanted me to keep it out of developers' hands. He raised me here after my parents died. I thought the estate was settled." She swallowed once. "This morning, a man named Grant Harris came to my office and told me if I fought the lien, Westbrook would claim I forged part of the probate documents." There it was. Not just money. Leverage. A fake lien, a deadline, a fraud threat, a developer waiting to scare her into leaving before she could prove anything. I looked toward the sedan again. "Grant Harris is in that car?" "One of his men. Grant said they're watching to make sure I don't damage company property before surrendering the keys." Her mouth tightened around the word property, as if the house had already been taken from her in someone else's mind. The house behind her was not just old brick and black shutters. It was the last piece of family she had left. Her Uncle Robert had raised her there after her parents died in a winter crash. He had taught her to plant rosemary by the kitchen steps, to repaint the porch rails every spring, and to keep a folder for every bill because paper remembered what frightened people forgot. She was trapped because leaving meant surrendering the house. Paying meant admitting a debt she did not owe. Fighting meant risking a fraud accusation that could ruin her work, her credit, and her ability to defend the estate. Westbrook wanted the corner lot because it sat deep enough for 3 luxury townhouses. Grant's method was simple: make the legal threat feel too expensive to survive. I was involved for one practical reason before anything else. I traced forged documents for a living. For 10 years, I had followed shell companies, altered ledgers, false assignments, and signatures copied from dead men's records. I had no claim on Claire's life. I was not her lawyer or her family, but if Westbrook had built this threat out of paper, paper could break it. "Claire," I said, "do not give anyone your keys tonight." Her eyes lifted to mine. "Can they force me?" "Not with a letter shoved through your mailbox. Not without a court order. And if they're threatening fraud charges to make you leave quietly, they're more afraid of the paperwork than you are." For the first time, her grip on the letter loosened. "What do I do?" "First, you go inside and lock your door. Second, you call your estate attorney and leave a message saying you received a disputed lien notice and you are not vacating. Third, you make copies of every document they gave you." I already scanned them. Of course she had. She might have looked shaken at the gate, but Claire Morgan was not helpless. "Good," Where are the scans? On my laptop and a backup drive. Then we start there. She hesitated. The porch light came on behind her, warming the side of her face. Her blouse was buttoned high under a light cardigan, practical and neat, but she still looked exposed in a way that had nothing to do with clothing. She was standing in front of the last piece of family she had left while strangers waited in a car to take it from her. "I don't want to drag you into this," she said. "You're not dragging me, you're showing me a document. And if they come after you?" I picked up my work bag. "Then they'll have to put it in writing." That earned the smallest breath of a laugh. Not happiness. A crack in the fear. We went into her kitchen through the side door. The house felt older inside than it looked from the street. Dark wood floors, framed botanical prints, a narrow staircase with a polished banister worn smooth by decades of hands. The kitchen smelled faintly of rosemary, coffee, and lemon oil. On the table sat 3 neat stacks of paper, a laptop, a flash drive, a yellow legal pad, and a mug of tea gone cold. She had been preparing for a fight before she let herself ask for help. I respected that. I pulled out a chair but did not sit until she did. "Show me the lien." She opened the first PDF. The document looked official at a glance. County seal, notary stamp, legal language, property address, amount due. But fraud often hid in small mistakes because liars trusted fear to work faster than scrutiny. I zoomed in on the signature. Her uncle's name, Robert Morgan. The letters were smooth. Too smooth. "Did your uncle sign with his full name?" "Never," Claire said immediately. "He signed R. Thomas Morgan on legal documents, always. He said too many men were named Robert Morgan." I looked at her. That matters. She reached into the second stack and pulled out an old property tax form. The signature at the bottom read, R. Thomas Morgan in a cramped, slanted hand. Very different. I opened the metadata on the lien PDF. Created 6 weeks ago. Modified 3 days ago. The alleged signature date was 4 years old. I turned the laptop toward her. "Claire!" She leaned closer. The refrigerator hummed behind us. Outside, a car door closed somewhere on the street. Her eyes moved across the metadata. Then she sat back slowly. "They created it recently." "They created this file recently," I corrected. "That doesn't prove the paper original is fake by itself, but it gives us a thread." Her hands went flat on the table. "What else?" I like that question. Not what now? Not are we doomed? What else? I opened the county records portal and searched the lien number printed at the top. No match. I searched Westbrook Holdings. Too many records. I searched Grant Harris. That was when the pattern began to show itself. 3 contested estate properties in the county, all inherited by single owners, all approached by Westbrook, all hit with last-minute private liens. 2 surrendered within a week. The 3rd was still in litigation. Claire watched the screen without blinking. "He's done this before," she said. "Yes." "Why pick my house?" I looked around the kitchen, the original woodwork, the deep lot visible through the back window, the distance to downtown. "Because your house sits on a corner parcel large enough for redevelopment, and because your uncle is gone, so they thought you were alone." Her jaw tightened. "I'm not alone." The words came out before she realized what they meant. Then her eyes shifted to me. I kept my attention on the screen, giving her the dignity of not making the moment heavier than it needed to be. "No," I said, "you're not." By midnight, we had a working file. Fake lien notice. No county record match. Metadata inconsistency. Signature mismatch. Pattern of similar Westbrook claims. Name of a plaintiff in an active lawsuit. Claire made coffee at 1 in the morning because fear had turned into work, and work required fuel. She set a mug beside my elbow. "No sugar," she said. "You remembered? You returned my misdelivered package with black coffee in your hand twice. I notice things. So do I." She looked at me over the rim of her mug. For a second, the kitchen was quiet enough that the old wall clock sounded loud. Then my phone buzzed. "Unknown number." I answered on speaker. A male voice said, "Mr. Reed, this is Grant Harris. You are involving yourself in a private property matter that does not concern you." Claire froze. I looked toward the dark kitchen window. The sedan was still outside. "Mr. Harris," I said, "thank you for calling. Please confirm you are representing Westbrook Holdings in relation to the alleged lien against 1428 Briar Lane." Silence. Then, "This call's not being recorded. It is now documented in my notes." Claire covered her mouth with one hand. Not from fear this time. Grant's voice hardened. "Ms. Morgan has been advised of her obligations. Interfering could create legal consequences." "Good. Send those consequences in writing. Include the county filing number for the lien, the original note, the payment history, the notary ledger, and proof of assignment to Westbrook." Another silence. Longer. "You are making this difficult for her." "No," I said, "you are." I ended the call. Claire stared at me. "What did you just do?" "Asked for documents he should already have. And if he sends them, then we read them. And if he doesn't, then we know why." She looked at the cold letter on the table, then at the window, then at me. The fear was still there, but something sturdier had moved in beside it. A plan. The next morning, Claire called her estate attorney, a sharp woman named Sarah Bell, who sounded half angry and half delighted when she heard what we had found. "Do not leave the house," Sarah said over speakerphone. "Do not speak to Westbrook except in writing. Send me every file. Nathan, can you prepare a fraud timeline?" "Yes." "Good. I'll file an emergency quiet title response and request an injunction if they try to enter the property." "Claire, I also want photographs of the gate, the sedan, and the notice envelope." Claire looked toward the front window. "The sedan is still there." "Then we document that too." Sarah said, "No confrontation, just proof." After the call, Claire stood by the kitchen sink, holding her coffee with both hands. I should have called Sarah first. "You were scared." "I hate that." "You still scanned the documents." She looked at me. "You found metadata while I was trying not to shake. You preserved the evidence before I ever walked through the gate. That mattered more than comfort. It put the strength back where it belonged. With her, we spent the morning moving through the house with purpose instead of panic." Claire photographed the sedan from behind the living room curtain. I took time-stamped notes. She saved the envelope in a plastic sleeve instead of throwing it away. When the man in the sedan noticed the curtain move, he pulled away from the curb and circled the block once before leaving. Claire watched from the window. "He wants me to know I'm being watched." "Yes. That used to work." The sentence was quiet, almost to herself. Then she turned from the window and picked up the legal pad. "What do we do next?" "We go to the county recorder." She stopped. "Won't Grant be watching for that?" "Probably. That is why Sarah sends a notice first. We are not sneaking. We are preserving the record." 30 minutes later, Sarah sent an email to Westbrook's general counsel stating that Claire disputed the lien, refused voluntary surrender, and would be visiting the county recorder to verify public filings. The message was dry, formal, and beautiful. Grant replied in 7 minutes, "Any unauthorized modification of property records will be treated as fraud." Claire read it twice. Her mouth flattened. I put a pen beside the printed copy. "Circle the useful part." She looked at me. "What useful part?" "He is warning you not to modify records nobody has found yet. That means he knows the county file is weak." For the first time that day, Claire smiled with teeth. She circled the sentence, "At the county building, the air smelled like dust, printer toner, and old carpet. The clerk at the recorder's window wore purple glasses and the expression of a woman who had survived every possible version of public impatience." Claire gave her name and property address. The clerk typed, then typed again. "There is no recorded lien under that number," she said. Claire's shoulders started to drop. The clerk held up a finger. "But there is a pending document package submitted yesterday afternoon." My attention sharpened. "Submitted by whom?" Claire asked. "Westbrook Holdings Legal Services. It has not been accepted yet. It's in defect review." "Defect review?" The clerk looked at the screen. "Notary seal mismatch, missing assignment chain. Formatting issue on the legal description. Claire leaned one hand on the counter. There was a sign taped to the glass that said, "Please do not argue with recording staff." She did not argue. She breathed once. Then she said, "May I have a certified status report showing it is not recorded?" The clerk looked over her glasses. "Smart request." Claire glanced at me for half a second. I said nothing. This was hers. The clerk printed the status report, stamped it, and slid it under the glass. Claire held the page carefully, like it was not victory yet, but something close enough to protect. Outside, we sat on a bench beneath a dying oak tree while she called Sarah. The street was loud. Buses sighed at the curb. Someone argued with a parking meter. Claire read the status report aloud without stumbling. Sarah's voice came bright through the phone. "That gives me enough for the injunction filing. If Westbrook tries to enter before the defect review clears, we can frame it as intimidation over an unrecorded claim." Claire closed her eyes briefly. The wind lifted the edge of the paper. I caught it against the bench before it could fold. She opened her eyes and saw my hand there, not touching hers, just holding the document flat. "Thank you," she said. "We protect the paper. Uncle Robert used to say that. He had good instincts. He had terrible coffee. So do you." Her laugh surprised both of us. Small.
Real?
It ended quickly, but it changed the bench. The day no longer belonged entirely to Grant Harris. For the next 3 days, her kitchen became a command center. Sarah handled the legal filings. I built the financial trail. Claire searched her uncle's old files, labeled boxes, and handwritten ledgers. She knew the house better than anyone. She knew which drawer held old insurance policies, which closet hid bank statements, which attic box contained her uncle's notebooks. A rhythm formed because pressure needed rhythm. At 7 each morning, Claire brewed coffee. At 7:10, she complained that I made a face before tasting it. At 7:15, I drank it anyway. By 8, Sarah called with legal updates. By noon, I had traced another Westbrook shell company. By late afternoon, Claire would disappear into a closet or attic corner and return with a folder nobody else would have known existed. On the second day, she found the clue that cracked the case. A small black ledger in a shoebox marked garden receipts. Inside were years of careful notes. Property taxes, repairs, donations, contractor payments, and one entry from 4 years ago. Westbrook inquiry, refused, Grant H. angry, told him house stays with Claire. Below it, in her uncle's cramped handwriting, if they come back after I'm gone, check the notary. Claire touched the page with 2 fingers. The kitchen seemed to shrink around us. "He knew," she whispered. I read the line twice. "Did he know a notary?" She opened another box. This time, she found a business card. Marlene Price, mobile notary. The number had been disconnected. But people left trails. By evening, I found Marlene Price in another county under a new last name. She now ran a small bookkeeping office beside a pharmacy in a town 40 miles north. Sarah reached her first, but Marlene refused to sign anything until she saw Claire in person. "She says your uncle helped her after Westbrook tried to blame her for a stolen stamp. Sarah told us she does not trust calls. I do not blame her. If you go, I go with you by video. And Nathan drives." Claire looked at the ledger. "Then at the dark front window? I'll go." Marlene Price's office smelled like paper, toner, and peppermint tea. She was a small woman in her 60s with silver hair cut to her chin and a pair of reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She did not invite us to sit until Claire opened the black ledger. "My uncle wrote your name," Claire said. Marlene touched the edge of the page but did not turn it. "I told Robert to destroy anything with my stamp on it after Westbrook came around," she said. "He told me destroying paper only helps the people who lie." "That sounds like him." Marlene's eyes softened. Then she looked at me. "And you are?" "Nathan Reed, forensic accountant, neighbor. Which one matters?" "Today, accountant?" A quick smile crossed her face. "Good answer." Marlene pulled a locked metal box from under her desk. Inside were old notary journals wrapped in cloth. She opened one to a page marked with a yellow slip. "There," she said. The date on the alleged lien appeared in her journal, but the entry had been voided in red ink. Stamp reported missing. No signing performed. Beside it was a note. Grant Harris requested backdated acknowledgement. Refused. Claire's hand moved to her mouth. Marlene took out a sworn statement she had already begun writing by hand. I never notarized a lien for Robert Morgan. She said, Robert came to me the day Grant visited him. He said if anything happened to him, he wanted the record clean. I filed the missing stamp report that week. Westbrook made my life miserable for 6 months after that. Sarah joined by video and walked Marlene through the formal affidavit language. Marlene read each line slowly, corrected 2 dates, and signed with a hand that did not shake. When she pressed her notary seal onto her own sworn statement, the sound was small but final. Claire closed her eyes. This time, the relief stayed in her shoulders. Outside the office, she stood beside my truck and held the affidavit folder against her chest. The wind moved loose strands of hair across her cheek. I thought I was going to find one helpful document, she said. I didn't expect to find someone he had protected. Your uncle seems to have been thorough. He was stubborn, also useful. That too. She looked at me then, and the gray light caught the tiredness under her eyes. I don't know how to thank you without making it sound too small. Keep the folder dry. That is not an answer. It is the next useful thing. She shook her head, but she was smiling when she climbed into the truck. Back home, Grant had escalated. A new envelope was taped to Claire's front door. Not mailed. Taped. The paper inside claimed Westbrook had scheduled a possession inspection for the following evening and would bring a locksmith to secure the premises. Sarah's response was immediate. No one enters, she said over speakerphone. I'm filing the injunction tonight. Nathan, I need a clean timeline with every intimidation contact, including the sedan, the phone call, the defective recorder package, and this notice. It will be ready. Claire, you do not stand outside alone tomorrow. Claire looked toward the front gate. No, she said, I won't. That night, the kitchen light stayed on past midnight. I worked at the table, building the fraud timeline. Claire sat across from me, sorting her uncle's ledger entries into plastic sleeves. Every time she found another Westbrook-related note, she placed it in the center of the table with a quiet tap. At 2 a.m, she stood and stretched her fingers. You should go home. I'm across the fence. You have a job. So do you. This is my house. That is why I am still here. She looked down at the page in front of her. The old wall clock ticked. The rosemary by the kitchen window leaned toward the dark glass. After a moment, she opened a cabinet and took down 2 bowls. What are you doing? I asked. Making soup. At 2 a.m. My uncle said nobody should read legal threats on an empty stomach. Your uncle had strong opinions. He also thought canned tomato soup was cuisine. She set a pot on the stove with more determination than culinary confidence. 10 minutes later, we were eating soup that tasted mostly of salt and stubbornness. Claire waited for my reaction. I took another spoonful. It has structure. That is not food praise. It remains upright in the bowl. She laughed, and the sound moved through the old kitchen like someone opening a window. The next evening, Grant came at sunset. Not alone. He arrived with 2 men in suits in a locksmith van parked half a block away, as if theater could become authority if enough people watched. Claire and I were on the porch when he walked up the path. Sarah was on video call from Claire's phone. The phone sat on the porch table, camera facing the gate. A few neighbors had noticed the van. Mrs. Alvarez from across the street stood at her mailbox pretending to sort coupons. Mr. Patel watered the same patch of lawn for 10 minutes without moving the hose. Grant stopped outside the fence. Miss Morgan, he said, this has gone far enough. Claire stood. She wore a simple cardigan and held the black ledger in one hand, the sworn notary statement in the other. You're right, she said, it has. Grant glanced at me. Still hiding behind your neighbor? Claire opened the gate and stepped through. Not close enough for him to crowd her. Close enough for him to hear. Nathan helped me read the documents, she said. Sarah filed the injunction. Marlene Price signed a sworn statement this morning, and my uncle left a note naming you. Grant's expression changed, only for a second. But the camera caught it. Sarah's voice came through the phone. Mr. Harris, this interaction is being recorded for preservation. Any attempt to enter the property without a court order will be reported as unlawful trespass. The locksmith looked suddenly very interested in leaving. Grant smiled thinly. You have no idea how expensive this fight will become. Claire's fingers tightened around the ledger, then relaxed. My uncle kept this house through 2 recessions, 3 floods, and every developer who came smiling with a check. Her voice stayed even. I can survive paperwork. Grant stared at her. The old wooden fence stood between them, sun-warmed and weathered, no taller than her shoulder. But it might as well have been stone. His voice lowered. You think a sentimental ledger beats a signed debt? No, Claire said. I think a defective filing, a stolen notary stamp, a pattern of similar claims, and a sworn affidavit beat a threat at my gate. Mrs. Alvarez stopped pretending to read coupons. Mr. Patel finally turned off the hose. Grant looked at the neighbors, then at the phone, then at me. I said nothing. Claire did not need me to speak for her. That was the point. Grant turned to the locksmith. We're done. The van left first. Grant followed in his own car. When the street was quiet again, Claire stepped back through the gate. Her knees bent once on the porch step. I moved 1 foot, then stopped. Claire? She lifted one hand. Give me a second. So I did. She sat on the step, placed the ledger beside her, and breathed with both hands flat on the wood. The porch boards creaked under the evening air. From somewhere behind the house, a cricket started and stopped. After a minute, she looked up. I didn't shake until he left. You waited until it was useful. That sounds ridiculous. It sounds efficient. She laughed once, weak but real. Then she picked up the ledger and stood. Come inside. We need to send Sarah the video. That night, Sarah filed the final injunction packet with the video attached. By morning, the court had granted a temporary order preventing Westbrook or its agents from entering, securing, transferring, or representing ownership of the property until a hearing could be held. The document arrived by email at 8:14. Claire printed 3 copies. One for Sarah, one for the front door, one for the kitchen table. 2 weeks after the injunction, Westbrook withdrew the lien. Not out of kindness. Out of exposure? The withdrawal arrived by courier at 9:03 a.m. Claire did not open it at the gate this time. She carried it to the kitchen table, sat down, and sliced the envelope with her uncle's old letter opener. Her eyes moved across the page. Then she handed it to me. I read the first line. Westbrook Holdings hereby withdraws all claims under the disputed private lien instrument concerning 1428 Briar Lane. The house was safe. Sarah filed complaints with the county recorder, the notary board, and the attorney general's office. Annette Brooks's case was reopened. Marlene Price's statement became part of a larger investigation. Grant Harris was suspended from Westbrook pending legal review, which meant he finally learned how it felt to wait for someone else's paperwork. Claire kept the house. For a while, neither of us said anything. The kitchen clock ticked, the refrigerator hummed, the rosemary in the window tilted toward the morning light. Claire folded the withdrawal notice once, carefully. My uncle would have put this in a plastic sleeve, she said. Definitely. Then labeled it, probably in blue ink. He hated blue ink. Then black. She looked at me. The laughter came softly first, then turned into something that nearly broke. She pressed one hand to the table and breathed through it. I stood, filled a glass of water, and placed it near her hand, the way I had done before. This time, she reached out and put her fingers over mine for one deliberate second. Not clinging, not collapsing, choosing contact, then letting it go. Thank you, she said. You did not lose your house. No, she said, I didn't. Sarah filed the clean title confirmation that afternoon. When the county status arrived, her name stood alone on the record, unchallenged and clear. The first evening after the title confirmation arrived, she came to the gate again. This time it was closed. She stood on her side, holding 2 mugs of coffee. I walked across my driveway. I said most neighbors text. I wanted to use the gate properly for once. That sounds serious. It is. She handed me one mug over the fence. Black coffee. No sugar. She remembered. The house is safe, she said. Yes. Sarah says the title is clean. Yes. The investigation is moving forward. Yes. She looked down at the mug in her hands. Then back at me. So if I ask you to come over for dinner now, it is not because I'm afraid of being alone with the paperwork. The evening air smelled like cut grass and rosemary from her porch planters. Behind her, the old brick house glowed in the last light, no longer looking like property under threat. It looked like a home. No, I said, it wouldn't be. Her smile came slowly. I'm making terrible pasta. That is a bold invitation. You can bring better coffee. I can do that. She opened the gate, not because she needed rescue, not because someone was watching, because she wanted me to cross through. I picked up my work bag from where I had left it by habit, then set it back down. For once, there was nothing to carry. After dinner, she walked me to the gate. The street was quiet. No sedan, no idling engine, no man waiting to make fear look official. Mrs. Alvarez's porch light glowed across the street, somewhere nearby. A sprinkler clicked on and whispered over grass. Claire rested one hand on the repaired latch. You know what I realized? She asked. What? The first night, when I said I wasn't alone, I said it because I needed to believe it. I waited. Tonight, I know it. The latch clicked under her fingers. I did not reach for her. The choice had to stay hers all the way through. She stepped closer and offered her hand across the open gate. I took it. Her palm was warm from the coffee mug. The old fence stood beside us, steady now, no longer a line between help and fear. Come by tomorrow? She asked. For more pasta? For better pasta, I plan to improve. A reasonable goal. And Nathan? Yes? Bring the coffee anyway. I smiled. I will. The gate swung open between us. And this time, neither of us was afraid of what waited on the other side. The end. Closing thoughts. Core lesson. Real protection begins with truth, patience, and proof. Green flag. He helped her defend her home without taking control of her choices. Please like and subscribe so we can share more stories like this.